Hello, everyone. This is Sabine Minsky. Welcome to Empath Soul. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Helena Reilly. Hi.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Helena is the co-creator and co-founder of quantum sound therapy. She invented with her partner, Robert Lloyd, the quantum sound miracle IQ sound and the scalar vortex technology. And these help us transform our subconscious, those pesky patterns that we have. And through those sound frequencies, we can go into profound transformation. She is also the author of the newly released book, Quantum Sound Miracle IQ. And I'm so glad to have you on board Empath Soul today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So, could you start us off on your path to working with frequencies and with our energy field? What brought you into that bubble?
Very good question. Actually, I started as a child, sort of psychic. And so, because of that, I didn't know what to do with that gift. So, I then became a therapist and studied everyone that was available and practiced. From the time I was about 15, I was actually practicing in clinics. So it started early. And then I went to the University of Chicago. So to make a long story short, I actually discovered that the talk therapy had its limitations, we'll put it that way. And so I went in search of a modality that was effective. And I had the good fortune to encounter rebirthing and Babaji, Harakan Babaji, the one that's written about in Autobiography of a Yogi. And that's where I learned meditation, sound healing, mantras. But I took it another step further because I actually was working in those ashrams as a therapist. So I also saw the limitations there, that they had these great masters, and yet there were these very deep core issues, the self-doubt, self-hatred, denial, that were still not being released. So I prayed to the universe, and long story short, this voice, and I went back into the world and found the voice analysis software that we now call voice code analysis, and decided to incorporate it into my newly established private practice. But I found it was a very long road because this all occurred pre-internet. Now it would probably take us 5 minutes. But then it was many trips across the ocean to India, and I traveled all over the world doing rebirthing. But I was in search of something that I could see would release the subconscious. And because I could see the blocks, which is why I was a little different, I knew when I found something that worked. It worked with me and it worked with others. so that was my journey. It was long.
So when it comes to, maybe we could start off with the difference between energy and frequency, just to have a basic understanding.
So with frequency, we're dealing with very precise formulas. So for example, we have a soundtrack, and everything on earth actually has a frequency. Every organ has a frequency, every gland has a frequency, and it's very specific. And so when you're dealing with a frequency, energy is a more actually we can measure energy with frequency. So that frequency, for example, our frequencies are like 12.879234. That's how precise they are. And one might be able to measure, for example, the energy field of, let's say, this glass, and find a frequency for that object and for the field. And so frequency is actually a way to measure. It's a direct way to measure your vibration, a person's vibration, state of health or not health. And it's also a very specific way to measure energy.
Beautiful. So, we're opening up the field maybe for some people who think in terms of energy, especially as empaths in our connection with others. We tune into their energy, but we're also resonating with their frequency, right? Could you explain
Yeah,
how it works when we're interacting with people?
that's a great question. So when you're interacting with someone's energy, you're actually in some sort of resonance with them. So that's on a whole other level. That's a communication that's often involving the chakras, the connections in the energy field and body. And so we're capable of raising someone's frequency or just by our very frequency and altering the frequency through an energetic. I look at energy as like the fluid that's connecting. Even though you and I are sitting over 1,000 miles away, we're still connected in the energetic field via frequency. So it's for those studying energy and energy medicine or alternative energy medicine. With frequency, it can become a very precise measurement of the energy. Even we could, for example, take a voice analysis, the two of us together, and blend the energy by measuring it through the voice. So so energy is the fluid, it's a more expanded concept. With frequency, it can be extremely precise, a precise measurement of the energy field. And as such, we can also alter the energy field through frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think everyone understands that. Like you can alter the energy field of this glass of water through frequency.
You can make it sing.
Yes, and you can actually install information in it, like the note of C, for example. Let's say I'm weak in the note of C, so I can install the frequency precisely.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to our subconscious patterns, how do they show up in our frequency, in our vibration
Mhm.
makeup, in our matrix?
That's a great question. So we're analyzing 5 octaves of the voice, and what you'll see is through those 5 octaves, you'll see certain dominant and weak, or so stress notes and weak notes.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see, for example, we're using the example of, let's say that the A note is stressed or the F note is stressed. Usually, you'll see certain patterns in the voice, and that is a reflection of a deeper issue. So let's say, for example, actually, one of the favorite ones is that usually people are very weak in the G note in the throat chakra, and that's because we've been told not to tell our truth. So somewhere, and usually when we're doing interviews, we start to feel that in ourselves. So we would, let's say I looked at a voice sample and I saw, the G note is very, very depressed or even possibly stressed. That's indicating that there could be a block. It could be from many, many experiences in this lifetime, but it could be very deeply embedded in the subconscious. And with frequency, we can measure that stress or weakness and then deliver the frequency that balances that and releases the subconscious block. And usually, behind every note that's stressed or weak in the octaves, there is an issue. So, whenever there's like a very high note, there's some issue. It's either a dominant pattern, and when you apply the frequency, it can loosen that block, but it detects it by looking at where the most energy is and the least energy is. And behind that are always the issues. So when you work with someone over and over again with frequency, there's this lessening effect. It's like applying um, sound to a physical and energy body until it releases whatever's behind that. And with sound, we don't have to go into story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an important part. And I think everybody can relate to our voice modulation in moments where we're stressed out. We know our voice changes. It has to do, of course, with the physical uh, breathing that is changed, but it's also, we know that we have a different pitch.
Yes, when people are, for example, emotionally stressed, it's going to Well, what comes up often is the F note, because that's the heart chakra and a sign of emotional stress. It could be another chakra. It could be like the solar plexus is another big one. I used to work in New York and everyone seemed to have a stressed out solar plexus and F note, and very weak C and B. So weak grounding, weak, crown chakra, and a lot of energy in the survival chakras. And I'm seeing that less now. But the thing is that when the voice is analyzed and you start to see the repetitive patterns, that's where there's a subconscious block. And it may have to do with, it doesn't matter that much. It could be suppressed anger towards the mother that's showing up in a depressed second chakra. But that part doesn't matter as much as the frequency releasing it. And so here's the psychologist telling you, the story isn't that relevant in the new paradigm because it's mathematically measured. The frequency will release it. Who cares about the story? So people don't get too attached.
Yeah. Too many of us are attached in the big question of, I want to understand what's there. I have this pain here. What's there? I have this blockage here. What's hidden there? But the question is, do you want to go beyond it, or do you want to continue digging into it?
So what we tell people, and this is kind of a very repetitive thing for me, is that if you can just let it go, there's really scientific evidence that the more we tell the story, the brain actually, the pattern gets deeply embedded in the brain. So in a way, talk therapy is making the pattern stronger. So with frequency, if you can convince people, and this is true with all the energy medicines, actually, if they let it go and they feel that lightness, that aha, and they resonate in that and learn to anchor into it.
And isn't that where actually the information, the crystalline information actually does come up, because you're ready to just look at it and let it go? And
absolutely. That's where the clarity comes in. And this sense of, one of the things we hear a lot with the people that are working with this energy is, I felt so much lighter, like this burden was lifted. So it made us realize that the frequencies actually loosen the pattern, whatever is behind it. And I'm trying to get people to not worry too much about the analysis, because they usually put themselves down. It's like, oh, if my C note is depressed, that must mean that, I'm still a person filled with anger. And so they want to make the analysis quite negative. So it's almost better to avoid it. And I always say, in the new paradigm, all this is a mathematical analysis of your frequency, using the math to create then the soundtrack that's going to free you from whatever's behind that. And if we let it go, you might never have to revisit it, because it could be 15 lifetimes ago. Who knows where that came from? So this is our favorite statement: what's in your voice is in your life. It's the place where it's your story. Your voice is your story, and it's the gateway to that story. But we don't have to analyze it or psychoanalyze it to death, or even understand it, because we may be wrong.
When it's the work, we may very well be wrong.
Exactly. So the math will not be wrong. The algorithm won't be wrong. The mathematical analysis will always be accurate. There's no religious belief system, or really any belief system, other than you're a frequency we can measure. That's it. And it comes through the voice. So, because so many times, we've been told stories that aren't real about ourselves. And this is the other good news, is that you can't mask the frequencies in your voice. So right now I'm speaking, and I may be talking about something that I love, that I'm passionate about, but I can't mask it. I cannot make my C note high or my D, it's the frequencies are going to be the frequencies. And so that's the key also, is that in our own delusion, we often try to mask what we're feeling and knowing. And we go to healers and we still are trying to and it's usually subconscious, mask. You understand? Yeah, it's a strange paradox, but we go to the healer and we want to look good. Not a good thing. So the voice will tell the truth. You can't lie with your voice. That's why it will be one of the biggest things in the future for identity recognition and treatment. It's going to be a while, but it will be a huge treatment modality.
Although if we are in the realm of healing ourselves and evolving, then we'll have to have a technology that can follow us through our healing, because it will be changing, right?
That's the beauty, is that when you analyze the voice, it's not a one-time deal. We recommend people with the software or going online that they do it about once a week or at least once a month. They can listen to it 1,000 times, as many times as they want. So your sound therapist is with you, and it's going to, it acts very much, the soundtrack acts very much as a tuning fork. And we have the evidence through the Korotkov method that it always aligns the chakras. That's the first thing that we can evidentially prove, that when someone analyzes the voice. So let's say we had this woman, she just got off the highway, she's going through a divorce, she may lose her business, and she was very stressed out, F note. And after she listened to her frequencies, all lined up perfectly. And so that's one thing we can show visually. So it has to, so in terms of energy, the chakras, of course, are our energy centers. The voice is the doorway to that. And then with sound, you can align that and really alter so much of your current state.
And so you're an empath, a very highly sensitive person. And when it comes to connecting with others, do you see in your own experience and the people that you work with, how does that actually work in that bridging between two people? Are we attracted to people who have the same type of notes that they need to work on, the frequencies that they need to work on? How can we start using that?
That's a great question. So we do, for example, we do have couples who do voice analysis, and when we analyze, you can analyze their voices together. And we have a lot of people that go on to cloud sound therapy and they do that. They may be in a fight or whatever, and they've heard about us. But we have found that we will often have complementary notes. Mm-hmm. So for example, one will be high in the note of A and the other's low in the note of A. So we're actually frequently attracted to people who have a frequency that we don't have, or there's no such thing as not having it, but that's weak in the voice. And so the exciting thing about that is that we're always balancing out each other on an auditory level. And you'll probably find that out even more with like sensitive auditory people, that, some people's voices they won't like very much and others they'll love. And that has to do with many issues, but often there is a balance. So the exciting thing about that is when you blend a voice analysis, so that the couple does, let's say the couple says together in unison, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, you're actually blending and harmonizing. And it is interesting. Recently, I've just been hearing that over and over again, that it's the technology is harmonizing the relationships that were not very harmonized. So I was just saying to Bob, I think we're going to be dealing a lot with couples and families in the future, because I keep hearing this over and over again. And it's such a need to have that peace in your primary relationships, that sound is one of the quickest ways to find that harmony. And, myself as a sensitive, so much didn't feel right growing up. I know that's for everybody. So I hid that. And I played the piano and balanced myself doing like Hanon, da da, like scales over and over again, similar to the voice, right? I did that like an hour a day, piano teacher's request. But what I've discovered with the sensitive people is that the sound can adjust them so fast, because the empathy often forms a connection that throws them out of balance.
Mhm.
So with the voice analysis, and because they're sensitive, they're usually always trying to find ways to balance themselves. But you could go to a grocery store and some lady's really upset, and the empath's going to feel it and get all jangled. And she's going to have a little bit of a blip or a bubble or a wobble, as Sue Morter says. So like, but with the sound, you can go back to center quickly, that tuning fork.
Mhm. And talking about families, when we first connected on the phone, we got to chat a lot about um, the, the children who are coming in right now. And I just wanted to
Huh.
ask you, are there some frequencies that are best to use with babies as they discover our world of frequency and of 3D?
Babies are naturally in theta brainwave state.
Mhm.
So until they're about 7. So of course the deeper aspect of our work is that we're dealing with, I don't want to go too deeply into that, but brainwave entrainment. So most of our frequencies are written to encourage people to go deeper into alpha, theta, gamma, and at night delta. So the babies love that cocoon that's created with the scalar energy. Babies that are born into the technology love the energy. They love all of the frequencies because it's more the brainwave pattern than a specific frequency for them. And since we have that focus on meditation, peace, going inside, they resonate deeply. And it's the same with pets. Pets will, we've had many cats and dogs healed of different things. I can say that safely. They will hang out. And babies are similar. They love the brainwave entrainment, the theta frequencies, the alpha, and they also really resonate because it calms the adults. So babies are like the perfect mirror of the environment. If they're colicky, chances are the people around them are anxious. And with the sensitive children coming in, the crystals, the indigos, the gifted children that are coming in to save and change the planet, they're going to always be mirroring what's around them and the toxicity in the environment. So that bubble effect, they just love because the coherent energy generated by frequency and scalar amplified sound is kind of their home. In many ways, our frequencies are soul designed, and the babies coming in, they're still partly in higher realms. so, so right, so that we're the perfect medicine because we're going to calm the adults down. And sometimes I think actually the babies are bringing it to the parents, our work, to balance, harmonize, because they're doing the work on the parents often. And
Yeah,
the parents,
two-way street.
what's that?
It's a two-way street if only you're open to it.
Absolutely. And right now, though, their opportunity is to keep the babies and the infants open so they can fulfill their true purpose here, and so that the adults don't get overly stressed and somehow shut them down. That's the biggest opportunity right now, is to heal the adults and keep them in balance so they don't in some ways inflict the anxiety that shuts down the infant. And so this, right, so it's the safety issue, which is, I feel that in many ways the spirit of our, I think every project has its own spirit, and ours is coming more from a soul creation to try to orient people back to the soul, because we've gotten so mentally driven and active. And so it's to keep people more in a state of love and connected to their soul and their guides. And so the balancing of the family is a big part. And also, I was a child psychologist. So the thing is, I know I could have really been helped if I had one of the iCubes growing up, because I found my parents probably confusing at best. Like, I still, when I think about my childhood, it's like, that doesn't make sense. But, so, and I think many babies coming in, we might have been the early indigos.
Mhm.
And so, we created this. But the actual feeling that I get is that if we can create a bubble that's safe for the children coming in so that they don't lose connection, we're doing a tremendous service to them and to their families, because there's a huge gift, right, for everyone. But the big mistake is that when something shuts them down.
And beautiful. And to help us reopen,
Yes.
we're going to be offering a few gifts, including a pineal soundtrack.
Yes, we have. Yes, so we were told, actually, we have a lot of guidance coming in and downloads, and we got this information that when people spend a lot of time online, it actually shuts all of this down more. And so the pineal soundtrack is a gift, and we'll also have, as a gift, if people we want to establish a connection, we can do. I can do a clarity consult where I will online analyze your voice and tell you the dominant and your weak note. As well, I can tell you a couple of the elements that might be out of balance. For example, aluminum. We have a huge amount of toxic aluminum in our bodies these days. It's in the water and the air. But there also may be other areas, but I can tell you the dominant and the weak note over 5 octaves. And I can do that on the phone because I'll use the software. And we'll also offer a 50% discount off of the cloud sound therapy that you can do on an iPhone. It's also on our website. And we'll have a special discount coupon code. And that is, on quantumsoundtherapy.com, but you'll be using the coupon code for this group specifically. And you can also download the free pineal soundtrack. So we'll amp up your frequency a little and get you to experience these odd sounding frequencies.
And to finish on a upped frequency, do you have any words that you'd like to share with us as we come down into the end of this interview?
Oh, yes, yes. This is a time of great change, and it's a real opportunity. However, it's been extremely challenging on the frequency level, because actually, even since we started the project, we now have 3 frequencies for the Schumann resonance. And so as the actual frequency of the planet Earth shifts, we are being challenged. Our very energy fields are being challenged, which is why frequency becomes an important medicine. But it's very important to take advantage of this opportunity. For example, we're recording this during an eclipse. So these times are challenging, but what you need to do is go inside and figure out what it is you need to discard and what it is you need to emphasize, and where you need to raise your own frequency and whatever is toxic in your life. And also use the tools if they're being presented to you, whatever they are, experiment with them. Be open to a new way of thinking and being, and finding in there, we're sort of in the renaissance of this. So find the tools in your that are being offered, and feel free to test them. And if something new comes in and you don't understand it, just remain open. Your guidance will guide you, and also try to listen to the guidance from your guides. That's one of the biggest aspects of our project, is to get people to open up and listen to their causal body, so that they're hearing their guides and information from the past, present, and future. So try to listen and use your intuition instead of shutting it down, in order to stay in a flow state in this time of great change. So the key point, it's a time of opportunity. If you get nothing else, the paradigm will shift completely over to frequency over the next 50 to 100 years. And we will be healing everything with lasers and frequency, and there'll be no longer cutting, unless it's totally necessary. but stay open to this new way of thinking and experiment to see how you really feel about it. Find the center within you. And if you want to visit our site, that's awesome. It's always being developed. So, and if you want to connect with me, you can do so through my link, my Calendly link. So we welcome you to the new energy.
Thank you so much for sharing with us, for being with us today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. We look forward to working with you in the future.
Take care.
Thank you, Sabine, for the work you're doing.